Somebody tagged me recently in a video that was like, if you constantly dislike the media that you consume, it's a skill issue. And even considering the fact that I do occasionally enjoy things, I actually agree. It is a skill issue. I have no self-control, just a burning desire to have opinions on things that are none of my business. And on that note, I decided to pick up Flock by Kate Stewart, a TikTok darling that has been haunting me for many moons. This video began as a no spoiler vlog. I was going to read other things. I had hopes and dreams and aspirations for my future, but that's not where we ended up. And now I'm going to tell you all of the things that you don't need to know about the plot of this book, just every part of this wonderful experience. I'm going to roll my vlog footage and you're going to see me fresh-faced, naive, not knowing of what is to come, but I'm also going to be chiming in like this throughout to kind of link everything together, give you an understanding of the plot, tell you exactly what's going on, and explain how this book goes so off the rails that we are going back to pre-industrial times and trains do not yet exist. So that way you don't have to read this silly little series unless you want to, because although I had no idea when I was reading it what the fuck was going on, I've since figured it out and the people deserve to know. Hi, hello, I hope you're taking care of yourself. If you're new here, my name is Lexi, and I'm getting the itch again to read more books off of TikTok. And the first book that we're reading, it's called Flock. I know very little about this. Here's what I have to share. I believe that this is a reverse harem, and it takes place in the mountains. And if that sounds like it's hitting a little bit too close to home for you, just at least know in this one that I'm pretty sure they're not related. Score. Allegedly, this is a Robin Hood retelling, and it's got a 4.12 on Goodreads with over 200,000 ratings, which is quite good. This was the point where I was going to read you the blurb of this book because at least on Goodreads it had that particular flavor of new adult romance blurb that tells you genuinely less than nothing, but they actually changed it in the physical published version. This has a lot more information inside of it, so props for that, but I'm still going to read the Goodreads version just because I feel like it has a certain je ne sais quoi that I just have to share. Can you keep a secret? I grew up sick. Let me clarify. I grew up believing that real love stories include a martyr or demand great sacrifice to be worthy. Because of that, I believed it, because I made myself believe it. And I bred the most masochistic of romantic hearts, which resulted in my illness. When I lived this story, my own twisted fairy tale, it was unbeknownst to me at the time because I was young and naive. I gave into temptation and fed the beating beast, which grew thirstier with every slash, every strike, every blow. Triple Falls wasn't at all what it seemed, nor were the men that swept me under their wing. But in order to keep them, I had to be in on their secrets. Secrets that cost us everything to keep. That's the novelty of fiction versus reality. You can't relive your own love story, because by the time you've realized you're living it, it's over. At least that was the case for me and the men I trusted my foolish heart to. Looking back, I'm convinced I willed my story into existence due to my illness, and all were punished. Yeah, I'm sure that you can see why they changed that in the published finished copy. 2-minute reading update from the future. Actually, what I just read is just the prologue of the book. It's just the way the book starts. So keep that in mind. Okay, here's what you also need to know about the prologue because it keeps going after what I read. Cecilia, the main character, is 26 and she is describing returning for the first time to Triple Falls, which is the small town where she lived for a little bit over a year when she was 18, going on 19, going on 20. And she is returning there because she has some unfinished business. What unfinished business? Nobody knows for sure. She's cryptic to the point of making actually no sense. Like this entire prologue is written as if she is actively succumbing to a prion disease. If I can't grieve enough to cure myself in my time here, I'll remain sick. That will be my curse. There may never be a happily ever after for me because I gave my chance away by becoming attuned to the dark parts, accustomed because of the year I freed my inhibitions, reacting to rejection and pain, and losing all moral sense of myself. These are the type of confessions women who command respect are never supposed to give voice to. Not ever. But even though you get almost nothing else from this, you do gather here that all of this has something to do with some men that you will be meeting very soon. Other important context is that 26-year-old Cecilia has also left her fiance to go back to Triple Falls. She had tried to move on, she tried to touch grass outside of the mountains, just drank the cool water of being a normal fucking person, but it wasn't enough to overwrite the memories that she had of Triple Falls, the overwhelming love that she still has for the men that live there. And after this prologue, you immediately time skip back to when she is moving there for the first time, when she's 18. And you, as the reader, immediately forget that you've read it because it's almost meaningless. Like nothing about the prologue will make any sense at all until halfway through the second book. But yeah, I mean, that's all I got for now. I try as a rule to avoid spoilers as much as I can for books that are even kind of on my radar. So I don't know anything beyond what I've shared with you. I'll tell you more about what this is actually about when I discover it for myself during this wonderful adventure together, okay? We're gonna give this a spin. Flock. For anybody out there who frequently has over 300 tabs open on their computer, or alternatively to anybody who hasn't closed any of the Safari tabs on your phone since you bought it like over 2 years ago, I have something to share with you. Mir is a brand new browser that's primary goal is to make working online less stressful. And the main way that it does that is through these tab groups. This is my homepage, and I've kind of divided up my life into grind and flavor, the two wolves that are inside of me at any given time. And if I take you into the channel tab on grind, right now I have it closed so I can like maximize the room that I have to work. But right in the sidebar, if I expand this, I have links to everything that is important in my life when I'm working on videos. And all of these tabs are saved. I don't have to have like the instance open all of the time. I can just click on something and go right back to where I was. You can also rename the tabs like that, or change the names of the tab groups, move them around. You can highlight things if you want them to pop out at you. And it's just really useful if you're typically overwhelmed by how much internet you have to access in order to do a project. This makes it a lot more manageable, but outside of work, perhaps more useful for me. It's also really nice because I keep all of the fun things that I do in this section. I have a section that is just all of the video essays that I've slowly accrued that I want to watch. This session is just all of my streaming services, like right here for when it's time at the end of the day. And I'm not a student anymore, so I don't use this feature a ton. But if you are, or if you have a job that's very notes intensive, something that's really, really useful is, say I'm doing research on cats for some reason. I can go to the Wikipedia page on cats, click this guy, click this little wands guy, and then whatever I want from this page, I can just embed into a notes document. And that saves between tabs as well. So you can use it to take notes across multiple web pages, and like everything you need will just stay right there in your sidebar. And yeah, I really enjoyed using Mir recently. It's like a super juiced up bookmarks manager, kind of, but the way that it functions genuinely makes it seem a lot less overwhelming to tackle complicated projects. And if you're interested in checking it out, unfortunately it's only on Mac right now, but if you have a MacBook, I strongly recommend clicking the link in my description to try Mir completely for free. Thank you again to Mir for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. Let's get back to it. Okay, let's talk about this. So the actual premise of this book is we're following this girl named Cecilia Horner. She is a child of divorce. She's just graduated high school, and her mom was really the person who raised her, and they're really tight. They have this kind of honestly strange parentified dynamic, but Cecilia seems for the most part to be kind of okay with it. I'm sure that that will be deconstructed later, but her dad sucks. He's this super rich factory tycoon who pays child support, but otherwise had like nothing to do with her entire life. But the book begins when Cecilia moves into his mansion in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and she has two primary reasons for that. One, her mom is going through some shit. She's had this like full mental breakdown, and she moved in with her partner, but Cecilia couldn't go, so she just had to like fend for herself, hence why this was negotiated with her father. But also reason number two is that she is set to inherit this pretty large amount of money from her dad when she turns 20, but conditional to that, I think, is she has to work at one of his factories for a year to really like learn how to appreciate and respect the business from the ground up or whatever. I mean, this is a man who has never done a day of hard labor in his entire life. But anyways, at her first day at this factory, she meets a guy named Sean, who is like 25 and her work supervisor, and he is just so intrigued by her and her fat ass that he takes her to this backyard bash that his friends are hosting after orientation. And there are more than 3 total people involved in whatever it is that this man is involved in. We'll get there. But based on how the exposition is going, I'm pretty sure that she's only going to end up smashing these main 3. Sean is the golden boy. He's nice. He's kind of blithe. He's really likable to the masses, and you can tell all of this because he's blonde and really hot. Dominic is his best friend, and he's grumpy and emo and just kind of an asshole, and you can tell all of that because he has longish black hair and he's also really hot. And then Tyler has almost no characterization at all. He's brunette and also nice. He's kind of like Diet Sean, but you know that he's also in the group because he gets like 3 full paragraphs about how hot and single he seems. And yeah, those are all of the men. They all have like matching raven tattoos and are hiding something from Cecilia. They're probably in like a gang. Right now, it seems like she's most interested in Sean, but she's also already learned via the village gossip that they share women. So the seeds are planted. We'll see where we go. How do you know Sean? I shrug, stacking up the empty tubs. We met yesterday at orientation. You be careful with him and steer clear of his friends, especially that dark-haired one they call the Frenchman. She leans in. I've heard things about him. Really? The Frenchman. It has to be Dominic she's speaking about. I detected a hint of an accent when he spoke and have little doubt there's truth to her warning. I'd been introduced to that infuriatingly gorgeous dark cloud last night. He's the mere opposite of the spiked sun ray that's been taking up my thoughts today. Yeah, they don't mess around. Fast cars, parties, drugs, and girls. She leans in close. I hear they share women. Really? She leans in even closer. I hear they smoke the weed. I can't help my giggle. That wacky tobacco, huh? She narrows her eyes at my condescension. I'm just saying, be careful. One of them got a hold of my cousin's goddaughter, and let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. What else? Sean uses the pet name Pup, which I hate. Miss me, Pup? You're making fun of me, Pup, so you hate the plants, huh, Pup? You planning on glaring at the front door all night, Pup? You catching feelings for me, Pup? And you know, with that, I'm so over the defiling the youth subplot inside of new adult romance. Like, why does it always have to be that she's 18 and she's innocent and high-strung and fresh out of high school with a big ass and no concept of its infinite power? And the men are in their mid-20s and like warning her not to bark too loudly at the wolf for fear of being slaughtered like the little lamb that she is. Like, I am so sick of it. And it's just every time. Like, she could be fresh out of college with a big ass instead, and she would have virtually the same arc inside of this book, but it would be less weird, you know? Like, what's even the point? Why are we still here just to suffer? Extremely, extremely rare Den of Vipers W. At least Roxanne with 2 X's had a fully developed frontal lobe by the time that she started smashing her small squadron of mafia men. You know that you're having a bad time when you're getting unfavorably compared to Den of Vipers, but anyways, we carry on. Dude, Sean the kind of fuckboy who does psychedelics one time in college and then comes away from that experience with the most cooked takes that you've ever seen. Like, listen to this. They say the land of the free and the home of the brave, he mutters, shaking his head as he resumes our walk. Yeah, they do. I follow behind him. Your point? He turns back to me. I say it's the land of the mentally inept, electronically dependent, and brainwashed media slaves. Don't be sorry. Just don't give it power. Now is now. Later will eventually be now. Don't be a slave to the insanity of keeping time and keeping up. Now is the only thing you have control over, and even so, it's an illusion. You are one strange man, I laugh, shaking my head. Maybe, or maybe everyone needs to wake the fuck up and snap out of business mode. But they won't, because they're too cozy in the down comforters they bought from an Instagram ad. Dude, men like this suck. They're the fucking worst if you ever have the misfortune of meeting one. I would have conversations with men like this at parties in college just to fuck with them. It was too easy. I just feel like the world would be a better place if more people just listened to Nietzsche. You know, I feel like nobody listened to him. I just really see myself in Holden Caulfield. Dude, have you ever read Atlas Shrugged? Life-changing. You gotta get on that. Yeah, I'm looking into planning an ayahuasca retreat for this summer because I really want to like connect to my roots, you know, like the energy of the earth. And also when I start my career as an investment banker, I still want to appeal to indie bitches. It just feels like the right thing to do, you know? You could come if you wanted. Genuinely euthanize me. To prove his point, less than 1 page later, Sean rips off her Apple Watch, throws it on the ground, and smashes it with his foot. All because she's like worried about being late to something, and she's not like properly riding the wave of now. Genuinely, die. Oh, I hate him. And also, of course he doesn't have social media. He's unplugged. He's salt of the earth. My last girl was Bianca. She was manipulative, so it didn't last long. Manipulative how? She wanted to control me. I don't do well with that. She wanted to manipulate my now, but I found myself trying to escape her more than I wanted to tolerate her. I ended it. Dude, is this book triggering me? Sean is like all of the most annoying men I have ever met in my entire life, just spun up into one person. Every page of content that this man gets just makes him more insufferable. I don't know how it's possible. Also, I don't think I mentioned this, but now just it feels like the time. He goes by Sean in this book, but his full name is actually Alfred Sean Roberts. Alfred. Just thought you should know. I somehow don't mention this when I'm talking about Sean, but it's also just really important to me that you know that he has frosted tips. Okay, I am quite a bit further in this book. I am so bored. I'm so bored. Pretty soon after we last spoke, Sean and Cecilia started banging, of course. And if you're wondering how she still ended up with him, despite how like obviously himself he is. I mean, Sean the kind of guy to pull up to the Phoebe Bridgers concert with like a copy of Normal People hanging conspicuously out of the pocket of his cargo pants. And if you're wondering how she doesn't see that, it's maybe the only realistic thing about this book. But anyways, they also folded in Dominic pretty recently. I mean, anybody with more than 3 functioning brain cells probably could have predicted that. For context, Cecilia has found Dominic to be hot this entire book. Every time that she sees him, she can't help but think about how unfairly hot he is. Like, there was never going to be a universe where they weren't all going to smash. Things you need to know about Dominic: he's ambiguously French, and he drives his car at 120 miles per hour. No exaggeration, that's like the actual rate in the book, just for like freedom, you know, just to really push life to its limits. He started off honestly extremely suspicious. Among other things, he made it sound like the only way to get his rocks off was through violence, which, I mean, seen that one before, but actually that's not even really true. Now that they're actually throupled up, he's pretty vanilla. God, I hate it here. Explaining this is sincerely taking years off my life. Some other things about Dominic that I feel like you need to know. Keep in mind that she has been warned about him by her coworkers at the plant. They call him the Frenchman because, again, he's ambiguously French and supposedly not a very good guy. He is giga smart. He apparently did his master's at MIT, and now he handles all of the hacking for his gang. I have no idea really what kind of hacking he actually does. The details are explained away by the fact that the main character knows nothing, so it just looks like number soup on his computer screen. But Dominic is apparently the backbone of the entire organization. He's also the edgy one. He's like poorly socialized and mean to people, mostly because Dominic is trying, for reasons that I will soon explain, to scare her off, right? He doesn't want her with Sean, who she is now officially dating. He doesn't want her around the gang, but unfortunately, Cecilia is just so hot. She's so bad that he is undeniably attracted to her despite himself. And he is, in the first part of this book, like truly a freak. The worst thing he does is when she's over at their house cooking dinner for Sean, he comes into the room and is like telling her that she shouldn't get attached. Just basic threats like that. He's like, yeah, that waterfall that Sean took you to when he was ranting to you about how we're all slaves to technology and time is an enigma, and then he broke your watch and never bought you a new one, but you still let him anyways. Yeah, he takes every girl there. It's not just you, which really shouldn't surprise her given everything that she knows about Sean, but it still somehow does. And she goes, what are you, jealous? I don't see any girl around here clamoring to cook for you. There's probably not a dumb enough woman alive. He steps towards me, placing the drains bottle on the counter behind me, crowding me to the point I'm forced to lift my chin. Such nasty, hateful words from a filthy mouth. I rear back, and in a second flat, he's controlling the hands meant to slap him to cover the bulge in his shorts. Careful. Violence makes me. He tilts his head and his eyes flare, the sight of them like the glint of a knife. I'm a psychiatrist. So, you know, just outright assault, just my favorite thing to see from a dark romance man. Anyways, then Sean comes in and Dominic lies to him about what's been happening and says that it was like her idea or whatever. And Sean, darling boy that he is, doesn't defend her. He notably also doesn't seem to care whatsoever that it happened, which is its own problem, but he also doesn't defend her. And that's actually a pretty big thing inside of this book. Sean, and to a lesser extent also Dominic, basically never stand up for her or protect her from anything in the name of like putting the reps in and getting her tough to prepare her for this ambiguous threat inside of her future. If you're wondering what the threat is, you're not going to find out again until like book 2, but it's there, okay? And Cecilia better be prepared. This is just one of many excruciatingly cryptic things about this book. Sean and Dominic also call her game face when she stands up for herself, her mean mug. And they're just constantly like, give him your mean mug, babe. If you don't mean mug hard enough, then you might not belong here with us after all. Instead of just doing the bare minimum amount of kindness and care for their partner by, you know, checking in to make sure that she's okay. Because yeah, at this point in the book, they've officially become a throuple, Sean and Dominic and Cecilia. The origin for this is, again, Cecilia has been horny for both of them this entire time, but she would lambast herself for it because it just made her feel kind of morally icky to thirst after her boyfriend's best friends. But it turns out that Sean picks up on this, and let me quote this because I feel like it's actually kind of important. It disappoints me and, in a way, wounds me. I was hoping at this point he would be possessive when it comes to me, but that's not what I'm feeling from him. I just don't want to feel he lifts his head. Used? Degraded? That's you doing it. That's you, baby, not me. He leans in. Any judgment being passed right now is yours and yours alone. He's still holding onto my hand and slowly lifts it, kissing the pads of my fingers one by one. When we started spending time together, I didn't expect. His eyes pierce me deep. I have been and will be monogamous with you, Cecilia, easily, if that's what you truly want. I have half a mind to lock you up and throw away the key with only me behind the door because of the way I think you're starting to feel. But there's the other side of it, and I don't want to hold you back because liberation can be a beautiful thing, and you deserve to have whatever you want. He leans in, whispering kisses along the hollow of my neck, his lips trailing over my rapidly heating skin. He grips my hair, his breath warm in my ear. It's okay to want his baby. I'll watch it go in you and fucking love the view and the savage it'll make me. Which, you know what? Good for them. They start this poly relationship at this point that is honestly pretty chill. Like, as soon as Dominic starts getting play, he basically becomes an entirely different character. He immediately stops doing all of the problematic nonsense and just kind of morphs into being this alt-emo soft boy who buys her favorite books and cooks for her and watches movies with her when Sean is out of town. He like doesn't believe in love, but he cares for her very deeply. Sean, for the record, stays equivalently insufferable the entire book. And it's not a true try triad. Like, it's very much a sister husbands kind of vibe where she just gets to date both of them and that's it. There is one scene with all three of them at the beginning of the relationship, but everything else is just her juxtaposing how different it is being with both men. Sean, she like listens to and goes hiking with outside, and Dominic, and this will be important later, Dominic she hangs out with on rainy days. When I look back at him, I see his gaze follow my fingers before it returns to mine. He's not used to the simple affection, and that saddens me. We hold our stare for a few seconds before I speak up. My rainy days are yours, Dominic, if you want them. It rains a lot here, he says after a few long beats. Which would be tender, maybe, but unfortunately recharacterizing him entirely does not make me like him. I still do find him extremely suspicious. Like, I don't trust men like that. They scare me. But yeah, last note on this is that I really want to drive home that the circumstances of the throuple, now that they're actually together, are actually really chill. Again, like there's no jealousy at all between these two men. They actually orchestrate situations for the other person to be with Cecilia. And their entire mission really is just making Cecilia feel okay having a good time with this dynamic, instead of her feeling that she's like baked in sin or betraying both men somehow. That's really the whole conflict of the vast majority of this book. Like that's all that's going on. Like 80% of the middle 200 pages are just Cecilia banging and reminiscing on banging and questioning the ethical implications, if they exist, of her banging. And my brain is starting to melt out of my ears because the 20% that isn't smut is the B plot, which is so dumb. Dominic and Sean are obviously in a gang. It's abundantly clear that not only are they in a gang, but that their gang's whole thing is stealing from rich people and giving it back to the poor people in their community. I also want to add here that Sean has spent a lot of time in this book sharing his philosophy with her, right? Like, we need to eat the rich, and she starts off kind of like, but theft is bad. And so to prove to her that sometimes crime can happen for complicated reasons, Sean just makes her sit in a car and watch an old woman across the street in a cafe make some tortillas for, no exaggeration, 2 hours canonically. He's in the laundromat across the street doing laundry, and she offers to help, but he's like, no babe, just stay here and people watch in my silent car. Important context, she's not allowed to have her phone with her when they hang out because the government is always watching, of course. So she has nothing to do inside of that car except watch this old woman make tortillas. And it turns out that the reason that he makes her sit there is because eventually she sees this lady go into the till after someone comes into the shop and take some money off of the top and like stuff it in a little envelope. And then she takes it outside to this random van that is just screeched to a stop in front of the store when the coast was clear, except, I mean, Cecilia can see all of this for some reason. Just full view of this interaction. And inside of this van, a guy who looks to be in his 30s exits before opening the back door. Attached to it sits an electric chair, making it wheelchair accessible. My attention locked on the van, I don't notice Selma, the old woman, until she too is peering in the van, the bag in hand, her soft voice crooning out hurried Spanish just as the backseat is turned and a young boy comes into view. He's severely disabled, his legs and arms shriveled up at his sides, his eyes searching and searching, darting left and right. He's blind. Selma steps into the van, showering him with kisses, and tosses the bag of tortillas and cash onto the seat next to him. My heart sinks. She does it for him. She steals for him. So she gives this envelope of stolen money to her blind grandson, who also has no arms or legs, and if that's not enough, Sean's car door opens and closes, but I keep my eyes on the boy. What type of life does he live, confined that way? Unable to see, unable to move his arms and legs, his body a prison. He's partially deaf, too, Sean says. Because of course he is. They make him like quadruple disabled just to really drive home how sad this entire situation is. We never learn his name or anything about him at all. Actually, just the fact that sometimes your grandson is quadruple debuffed by the world and society doesn't even care. And don't you get it, Cecilia? Aren't things more complicated now for you and your sheltered little puppy worldview? True to form, she realizes for the first time because of this interaction that, wow, maybe society can be bad and people can slip through the cracks. Maybe poor people aren't just committing crimes sometimes because they're fundamentally evil and worse than me. Maybe it's because they have no other way forward. Obviously, there was no other way to make this point. You had to bring in the quadruple disabled unnamed grandson that we will never see again. The only thing bulletproof sad enough to justify doing theft. Nothing else makes the cut. It's just so over the top. I'm sorry. But anyways, she looks at Sean and she's like, wow, I didn't know that a man could have such good opinions. I turn back to Sean and scrutinize him. Who in the hell are you? What 25-year-old man does his friend's laundry, genuinely cares about Selma's cash flow problem and disabled grandson, hates money, hates time, has zero regard for status, and lives without a single worry for the future? Alfred Sean Roberts. That's who. Robin Hood retelling on the back. That's what they're doing. But the thing that is frustrating is that at once they're kind of initiating her by bringing her to these parties with a bunch of Freemason Raven tattoo gang members from different areas of the country that all come together to conspire, except none of them are allowed to talk to Cecilia about anything. But she's allowed to like see their faces. You know, she knows who they are, which you would imagine would be kind of bad for somebody that you don't trust implicitly. And then at the same time, Sean and Dominic are refusing to answer a single question about what is going on. Every conversation that isn't smut is just like this. Hey, so I was just wondering why we were running from the police through the cornfield last night. Like, what was the deal with that? Can you keep a secret? Yeah, cool. Still won't tell you though. Also, money isn't real, and the government is always watching. I'm sorry, what? God, you're so hot when you're confused. Let's go drive a car really fast and then bang in the forest. And it's just so obviously building up to the most predictable twist of all time. This isn't technically a spoiler because I don't know how the book ends. I haven't gotten there. This is just my prediction, but obviously Sean and Dominic only got close to her because she's the daughter of the only giga rich guy in town. They hate rich people and he's the only rich person that we've met in this book. Like they obviously want to use her to either do some robbery or to allow them to do some robbery themselves. And I know that when she finds out, she's gonna be all scandalized. Like, how could you do this to me? As if it's not the most obvious thing in the world. And the two of them will be like, yeah, babe, but like, we ended up loving you and that was never a part of the plan. I can't believe that it got this far. And it's just like, get to the point so I can finally be free. If I'm gonna suffer through like 200 pages of nothing, I at least want the ending to be kind of crazy silly in a fun way. I'm a simple woman. Give me something that I could read on r/relationships. Give me something that could be the screenplay for a D-list Lifetime movie. And I'm gonna be okay. At least I'll find your book entertaining. You can't be boring and then also predictable. I can't take it. But anyways, let's finish this. I'm sorry. So remember Tyler, who I thought would be a member of the bands, but he's not. Apparently, and spoilers again, I guess. The reason for that is he was shacking up with Dominic's aunt/mother figure, like the woman who raised him, and that he had known since he was presumably very young. Apparently they were all childhood friends. That's like how they met. And they were shacking up when he was 18, but then she broke it off with him and then he joined the military. I mean, he's also, for the record, in this gang, but he's also in the military. And he like gave up on her, even though he'll always love her or whatever. Also, she has cancer now and is actively dying and an alcoholic. And Cecilia is learning all of this when she goes to clean her house with Tyler because she feels bad after she was there with Dominic. And Tyler, before this point, hadn't seen her in years. But then we learned that they actually get back together after this because Cecilia brought him there. So that is really how this goes. It's star-crossed lovers. But they're talking about this, like having requited feelings when you're 18 for your best friend's mom is like really romantic. I was comfort for her, but she's the one who crushed me. Despite being a punk-ass 18-year-old, I knew I loved her. Can't help who you fall for, right? No. No. I'm just a girl trying to retain my sanity. His mom? I'm sorry. Okay, it's over. So here's the thing. This book wasn't good. I think it's gonna be a 1.5 from me. I've definitely read things that were more bad, but I'm not sure if I've read very many things that were less good, if that makes sense. Relationships this toxic should at least be interesting. I hate both of these men. It should be a felony crime to make me look up the lyrics to a song when I'm reading a romance novel to understand what's going on. And the ending of this book was both exactly what I expected it would be and also somehow made no sense at all. So here's what happens, and I'm going to explain this to you as you understand it at the end of this book, which for the record is really not at all. Like everything is so fast and vibes oriented that you don't really know what's happening at this point, but let me help you out, okay? So Dominic and Sean have been hitting her with more cryptic bullshit this entire time, right? About what their gang is obviously doing, which she really should be able to guess at this point, but somehow does not. And they tell her that as soon as she is all in, as soon as she completely commits, they will answer all of her questions. Being all in inside of this secret Raven society also means that she would get like claimed by one of them. She would either get a necklace of a raven wing to mark her as one of the gang, or if it's real serious, she would get her very own raven tattoos, her own drip to mark her allegiance, which obviously is a very big deal. But our girl wants to go to college. She wants to like experience the world outside of Triple Falls and have, you know, free movement, free reign, no active status as a criminal at any point in her life. And she notes astutely that a life inside of organized crime could possibly complicate that plan. So it takes her a while to agree. There's some more cryptic bullshit. At one point, notable event, Sean is canonically 6 full full hours late to a dinner date where Cecilia had cooked for him, and she's obviously mad that he's late, which is valid, and he's like, oh, sorry babe, couldn't text to let you know that I hadn't died because Big Brother's always watching, you know I never have my phone on me. You know me and how I don't believe in time. Sometimes I'm just gonna be 6 hours late to things, and you should be okay with that because you should be cool like me and not uncool like the rest of the bitches. At least you have my now, babe. You know how important the decision of where to spend my now is. And to her temporary credit, Cecilia is like, that's bullshit. You're mean to me and the phone thing is dumb and you should just text me next time to let me know that you're going to be 6 hours late. Pretty reasonable, all things considered. And Sean 180s and immediately is like, actually, fuck you. You're not cool. You're not taking my life's work very seriously. I don't think that you're cut out for this life of crime. You're so quick to point out what a goddamn idiot you think I am. Do you know what happens if I'm right? His voice shakes with anger. Do you know what happens to caged birds? I've never seen him so pissed, and I don't congratulate myself for being granted the fight I've picked. Nerves firing off, I twist my hands in front of me. Sean, I think you're brilliant, but I'm not a fucking schizophrenic, Cecilia. These are Dominic's rules too. You think he's ridiculous? What about Tyler? Is he ridiculous? Have you turned on the fucking news lately? How much do you need to see to believe? No, everything I do has a reason behind it. I've explained that over and over, and tonight, what I was doing was equally as important as what I did yesterday and the day before that. Sean, I take a step forward, hating the glare in his eyes. It's the first time it's ever been directed at me. He crosses his arms, cutting me off from getting closer. It's just, I spent half a damn day cooking for you. The least you could do was give me a real apology. Oh yeah, this is about the dinner I missed, right? He spins, jerking open the fridge, and grabs his plate. He rips off the foil and snatches a fork from the drawer before shoveling barbecue into his mouth. It's delicious. You happy? Tears gather in my eyes as he tosses the plate across the kitchen and it shatters in the sink. Just what a catch, you know? Sean on the spot decides to dump her, and let me just read you how this goes because I felt insane when I was reading it. It's then I realize how weak my argument is, and he looks me over, shaking his head in disappointment. I thought you believed in me. You're getting a lot better at lying. You know I do. I step forward and he jerks away from my touch, peering down at me with cold eyes, his face resolute. If we're going to continue to fight about trust, maybe we should table this. What? It's physical, the way every word strikes me. I feel every violent blow down to my freshly painted toes. Us. Table this. We should break. You mean break up? Tears fill my eyes instantly. It's at that moment that I realize how deeply I love him. He's dumping me because I'm throwing a fit. At this point, it's deserved. I went too far and insulted him in a way I can't take back. I have zero defense. Yeah, I mean break up. He eyes me from where he stands, his tone unforgiving. Don't do that. Don't do that. I was angry. Doesn't matter. Anger isn't an excuse. I can't have someone around me who doesn't believe in me and what I'm doing. It was a gamble with you, and it's clear to me now that you're too young. Don't, Sean, don't. You know I believe you. No, you don't, he snaps. Not in the way you need to. Go home, Cecilia. We're done. He grabs his beer from the counter, tossing it back, his face void of emotion. He's shutting me out. I refuse to believe it's over. There's too much between us. And I wasted so much time not admitting it. Terrified it might be my first and last time, I bare myself completely. I love you, I whisper through a blur of tears. And I don't think you're crazy at all. I got upset sitting here for hours romanticizing how I would say this to you and that it would matter. Instead of admitting it, I got angry and said stupid things I didn't mean. I trust you. I believe so much in what you're doing. I think you're brilliant. He darts his eyes away and slams his beer on the counter, the suds spilling over the bottle. I'm sorry, I'll go. Sliding on my sandals, I grab my purse from the table. My eyes sting as I try to hold myself together just long enough to make it to my car. I make it just past the staircase to the entryway before I feel his chest at my back. A cry escapes me as he flips me around and cups my chin, lifting my eyes to his. I take it back. I burst in his arms, my sobs coming out in a rush as he pulls me to him, leaving no space between us. I'm so sorry, baby. Fuck, I regretted it the minute I said it. He wraps strong arms around me. You're fucking crazier than you're acting if you think I want to spend a minute away from you. I miss you too. Today was bad, and fuck, I'm sorry. You look so beautiful. Yeah, he really did just take backsies, the breakup. Honestly, that part is like too true to life. It's not even really that funny. And then they immediately smash on the kitchen counter, and Cecilia uses this entire scene as her like grand moment of realization. She's like, wow, I love this man. He's the one for me, or one of the two for me. You know what? Fuck college. I'm all in. So she's about to agree to be completely committed after this, and she goes on a date with Dominic, and then when she comes back, she plans on telling them both at the same time at their house. But when the two of them get back to the house, something has clearly happened, and Sean and Dominic make heated eye contact, communicating with each other in ways that Cecilia might never fully understand. She can tell that something is wrong, but nobody will give her any information. She's taken home without a conversation like pretty much immediately, and her men go on to kind of ghost her for a couple of days, and actually feeling herself start to shrivel up into a fine dust with the lack of both smut and knowledge. After these few days, Cecilia caves and she goes to pop by the garage where they all work to hopefully get some answers, and she sees them there, and they seem completely normal. They're just having another little darty, like the ones that Cecilia has been to, along with some of the other members of the gang. Cecilia doesn't talk to a single person inside of this scene. She just makes kind of loaded eye contact with Dominic and Sean, and they kind of ignore her, but Sean seems a little bit pained about it. But Cecilia has this full-on mental breakdown and runs away, never saying a word to either of them, all because of these two songs that they're playing on aux when she's there. Afternoon Delight and then Cecilia. And she's listening to them as if they are like coded messages directly to her. They don't give them to you, so I had to look up the lyrics to these songs, which made me irrationally upset, but they're basically songs that in this context are about a casual relationship that really didn't mean anything. And because of this, Cecilia is just like, wow, they actually have hated me this entire time, and everything up until now was fake and not real and super fake. That's when I break, utterly humiliated and completely taken aback by the second faces of the men I've fallen so in love with. Each lyric turns every beautiful moment we shared into one of my degradation. I've been played. I let them in. I let them use me. I convinced myself it was real, that they cared. I thought it was love, but I was a game to them. They set me up, lifted me as high as I could fly, only to watch me fall. As she's leaving, Sean just punches Dominic in the face after seeing her cry, which I guess is just par for the course for Cecilia at this point. She doesn't really find it suspicious at all. Nothing else going on there. You know, it must be exactly what she thinks. So she flees. 2 weeks go by that she spends in Atlanta, which is where she's originally from. And she spends this time watching rom-coms with her mom and her best friend. And she's like charged up by the love of the women in her life who are almost never mentioned outside of this one scene. But eventually she does go back to Dribble Falls because she's like, all I have to do is just work in this factory for a few more months and then I'll be rich for the rest of my life, which is true. So power to her. But she confronts Dominic first at this like random street intersection and they have this completely pointless conversation. I'm sorry. Fuck you. Is that all? It had to happen. No, it didn't. Leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to ever see you again. Cecilia. Fuck you, Dominic, and your sick fucking games. I'm out. That's my decision. I turn and try to jerk my arm away, but he refuses, gripping me by the waist and yanking me back against his chest, his breath hot in my ear. You know we didn't mean it. I don't know shit, but I'm done with you, with both of you. I wish that was true. Still gripping my wrist, he flips me around to face him. I move to slap him again, he clutches my other hand before pinning me to his car. We had our reasons. Did you? Good for you. Guess what? I don't care. You do fucking care. You belong to us. I snort. Are you hearing yourself right now? I told you to stay away, and now you're in it. What happened that night doesn't matter. Maybe to you. What happened before it does. And then after that, the next day, she sees Sean because, lest you have forgotten, he's her manager at work. And Sean, seemingly tortured by all that has occurred, finally caves and kind of tells Cecilia what's going on, but also not really, which is that yes, they're eating the rich. Yes, they hate Cecilia's dad and would like to eat him too. But the reason for that is actually more complicated than just the fact that he's rich. It's actually pretty personal because it turns out that Dominic's parents, who had emigrated from France, they both worked at one of her dad's plants and they had died in this extremely suspicious fire that had only killed the two of them, and then it had been paid off and covered up by Cecilia's extremely rich father. And as a result, the gang generally, but especially Sean and Dominic, want to make this guy suffer. Like, that is their primary goal. And initially, Cecilia is kind of a tool to them. She's like the front door to the con of their life. But then it became so much more than that, and we ended up loving you, Cecilia, and how could we ever have expected that to happen? And apparently, the reason that they ignored her and were mean to her at the party was because now they're trying to convince all of their enemies that they were just playing her and that she's not actually important to them, because the bad news from the heated eye contact that one night was that the wrong people have found out that she matters to them. And now, as a result of that, there are all of these like ambiguous domestic and international threats to her safety, and everything is going so terribly wrong, and they never meant to put her into a position where people could hurt her. But I guess there are enemies even within the Raven gang who would also be preying on her downfall. So Sean is like, I think you should leave. And Cecilia is like, that's a great idea, but actually I would like to stay so that way I can be rich. And Sean kind of just acquiesces. He's like, okay, fair point. I guess you can stay. Maybe it won't be that bad. But also, I am about to disappear, and so is Dominic, and now you have no boyfriends, where previously you had 2, now you have 0. But don't worry about it. It's really okay. One day, I'll try to make this right. But right now, I'm begging you to believe me. Trust me and trust Dom. And no matter what happens from here on out, don't look for us. Don't look for answers. I'll find a way to work this out. I'll find a way. You're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. You wanted to know, and now you do. You wanted in. You're in. It's time to keep your secrets. And then, just like that, they leave. They're gone now. No more information to protect Cecilia from all of these hidden threats that apparently now exist. And she's pissed, as you would be. She's like, where are my men? In retrospect, I now see that they have explained almost nothing, which is just how I have felt this entire book up to this point. And she decides that the way that she's going to lure them back and get a better explanation is through this just bulletproof 3-step plan. Buying and setting up this super expensive outdoor stereo system, sitting on her pool deck, topless, like a siren, and blasting Blasting K by Cigarettes After Sex on the stereo. More lyrics I had to look up, by the way, but that's her plan because also, I don't think I've mentioned this yet, which is crazy, but the reason that she thinks that this plan will work is because Sean and Dominic had been surveilling her. They'd just been watching her at all hours of the day. How could I forget to mention that? So she's like, yeah, they're gonna see what they're missing. I'll show them, and then they'll have to tell me the truth. And a few hours into this plan, when she's about to give up, somebody does show up, but instead of attracting Sean and Dominic, she attracts somebody else entirely, a new challenger. Nothing to say, I taunt, my eyes still closed as a shadow covers me, blocking out the sun. My skin prickles with anticipation as I slowly open my eyes and freeze. For what seems like endless seconds, we just stare, and in those seconds, I made acutely aware of my position. My cape coloring red, my eyes so penetrating they grip me like a hand to the throat. We don't want to let the wolf get a whiff. There's no mistaking it. I'm staring directly into the eyes of said wolf. He hovers above me, in complete contradiction to my attire in a tailored black suit, hair the color of a raven's wing, dark olive skin deepened by the sun. Thick, dark brows slashed over hostile eyes. Below, a strong prominence nose resting on a chiseled face. Thick, God-kissed lips. Broad shoulders, defined pecs, a trim waist beneath his open jacket, and muscular thighs that strain against his suit pants. That's when I know that knowledge truly is power, and I've been utterly stupid to think I had anything figured out. I've been so fucking blind. I'm drowning in fury amber depths and nowhere near strong enough to withstand it. It's the most I've ever felt under a man's gaze in my life. I shuffle to cover my bare as his eyes trail down my body. He's ready to pounce, his posture livid, his fists clenching at his sides. I'm positive if I were standing, my knees would have buckled under the weight of his blistering gaze. I'd gotten it totally wrong. 1 step forward, 10 steps back. You're the Frenchman. Yeah, the Frenchman that the entire town was warning her about earlier in the book, it actually wasn't Dominic, who is also French. It was this guy. And then the book just fucking ends right there. That's it. If you want to find out why anything in this book happened, if you want to find out who that guy was, too bad. None of it's in the first book. Keep reading, loser. But anyways, with all of that said, I've just learned that this is actually a series. It's not the full story. And I feel like I have no choice but to continue going. My hands are tied. This book rudely ended in a cliffhanger. I feel like I've committed too much of my time to not actually find out what's going on because like, surely this isn't it. Surely there is more to this than what we have. Surely something cannot be this pointlessly cryptic and then end up going nowhere, right? Right? Yeah. I'll be right back. Okay, so I was gonna do this really funny thing where I just cut until I was done with this book and then said like 2 sentences about how nothing got better and about how I just exist to put myself through suffering when I should definitely know better. But here's the thing. It's currently 4:02 a.m. What's going on? And I am 45% through my Kindle edition of Exodus. Okay, so before you see some of my reactions to this, let me just catch you up on the cold hard facts of what's going on in about the first 40% of book 2. So the mysterious Frenchman, the new challenger, our new man, his name is Tobias. I know, just stay with me. He is the leader of the gang. He's the kingpin behind the entire operation. And he is also Dominic's older half brother, which is T. I don't know exactly when you find that out, but it's pretty early, so you might as well know now. And this first conversation they're having with Cecilia just topless on a beach lounge chair, and he's fully wearing a suit in the middle of a hot summer day. And it's clear that he hates her. He hates her dad, he hates her money, he hates how she has basically seduced his 2 best men into dating her, and he's allegedly very threatening because it turns out that that thing that Sean and Dominic had been training her for, where they would never send up for her because she had to learn how to like dunk on people in the free marketplace of ideas, that was also she would be able to survive conversations with this guy. And even though she really wasn't like this at all in the first book, she undergoes this dramatic character transformation pretty much instantly here, from being naive and doe-eyed to being kind of ooh-hoo crazy, let's just start doing a bunch of insane things just for fun. And Cecilia starts saying the darndest things, like 0 concern whatsoever for her safety, which is horrible for the realism of this book, but really fantastic for entertainment. Also, for the record, I can't do a French accent, but Tobias is supposed to have a really heavy accent, and I feel like something would be lost if I didn't give him something. So I don't know what kind of accent this is. I feel like it's like vaguely Slavic, but just know that I'm aware that it's not the right one, okay? I want answers. I want to know my father's safe. I can't guarantee that. But you won't be the one to hurt him? His hesitation has my hackles rising. Physically, no. In every other way that matters. Yes. And me? You're not a part of this. I am now. No, you're not. I made sure of it. And it turns out that Tobias is the reason that Dominic and Jean are gone. You may hate my father, but right now, you're acting just like him. Like a machine. A control freak void of humanity with a god complex. And even though Tobias claims that Cecilia has nothing to do with this anymore, that's apparently not completely true, because the reason that he is here is the whole plan, I guess. What whole plan? Who's to say? But the whole plan that they have against her father could all come crashing down if she were to narc on them right now. And you might be wondering, what does she have to narc about? What details of the operation does Cecilia even know? What details of the operation will we ever even learn? Because this bitch knows nothing. Genuinely, she knows nothing. I know nothing. I feel like I know less things about the world than I did before I began. But I guess just the fact that she could tell her father that he has an enemy of some kind gives her enough leverage that Tobias has to come and make a deal with her to keep her quiet. And that is what they do. And the terms are that he will hold off on bringing ruin and despair to her family name until she gets her trust fund. And also that he has to promise that her dad will not be physically hurt during this process, which Tobias is kind of mad about at first, but eventually he's like, you know what, fine, whatever. Done, right? Wrong. Sean and Dominic at this point have disappeared. Their house is boarded up. They could be dead for all that we know, as if the universe would be so kind. And Cecilia is trying to move on from all of this, right? After the deal is struck with Tobias, some time passes. We get like a 7 or 8 month time skip. Cecilia is 20 at this point. She's nearing the end of her time at the factory, and Cecilia has tried dating, but all of the men have kind of been too normy for her. She's kind of just accidentally saving herself for her Raven men or whatever, but they're not here. And who she does start to see more and more of instead is Tobias. They have this one interaction in the woods because she thought that Damashon had left her a sign. She returns home one night and she finds a raven wing necklace on her pillow, which I'm sure I don't have to remind you, but in case you forgot, that is how men in this organization, like Ooga Booga, lay claim to their women. And when she finds it, she immediately runs out into the forest next to her mansion, as if they're still there. But instead, she enters a clearing and she finds Tobias, who did actually have nothing to do with this. I know that you might think he did, but he really didn't. He's kind of just vibing in the nearby woods. She shows him the necklace and Tobias is like, dude, you don't even know which of your men left you that necklace, if it was even them. And she's like, yeah, well, you're a big baby inside of a pinstripe suit, which, yeah, he's mad at that. So he kind of just pins her down on the forest floor and he rips off the necklace because it doesn't mean anything if the gang leader doesn't acknowledge it, which, I mean, is kind of true, but it's also quite rude. I assure you, I've gotten away with a lot worse. The curl of his French accent, combined with his open hostility, somehow makes his threat more dangerous. But I don't back away. I've let my hate fester for months, and I'm all too ready to unleash it. Why are you so angry, sir? Did I interrupt you killing and torturing small animals? It's Friday night, and you have nothing better to do than stalk little girls with crushes? Who's pathetic? I gather my strength, straightening my posture, my anger boiling over. You're nothing but a scared little boy turned control freak because he didn't get enough attention as a child. And because of course they do, because where else could this book possibly go? They go on to have this really steamy hate makeout session because they're such enemies, but they're also so hot. You know how it is. Worth noting that it starts off like not super consensual, but within a page, she's down to clown and has been kind of since they met. So it didn't really bother me. Like, again, she's kind of just in her chaos out of pocket, just doing shit for the sake of it arc right now. And yeah, their whole dynamic is just that they want each other despite the facts of the situation being entirely ridiculous. And I mean, that sentence is really just the entire first 40% of this book. I don't even know for sure if this is true, but it definitely feels like there's a lot less smut in this book than there was in Flock. Like, it's still steamy for sure, but a lot of it is just them resisting and Tobias like hanging out all of the time inside of her house that he just breaks into constantly, I guess to keep an eye on her, although it's not like she narked in the first 7 or 8 months of your deal. I don't really know why you would expect something to change now that you've made out once in the woods, but also B, I don't know where this man finds the time. Like, he's supposed to be the billionaire, very important leader of this gigantic gang, but he seemingly has not a single obligation at all. And instead, he's just spending every night bantering and arguing, and then most of the time he will go on to reveal some kind of hidden truth about himself. So you share a mother, but you took Dominic's father's last name. Why? More silence. But if his mother fled France because of his father, I'm guessing your father is more of a monster than you are? Watch it, he snaps. I've hit a nerve, a very big nerve. So you were in France the whole time. Doing what? I run my hands through my hair. Jesus, how far does this go? You don't want to know. He cocks his head. We're not playing a game with toy guns, extra lives, and Monopoly money. We left the fort and torched any trace it existed a long time ago, Cecilia. And they just have conversations like that. Or he like cooks for her and they have this extremely tense meal where they recognize that they are more similar than they are different. Or they play chess and she finds herself intellectually stimulated by this man that she is supposed to hate. At one point, she just decides to stand naked in a room in front of him just to fuck with him because she knows that he's not enemying as much as he is supposed to enemy, until eventually, surprising nobody, they smash, and it is just the most earth-shattering experience that either of them have ever had in their entire lives. He stares down at me, gasping out his release, unmistakable terror in his eyes, and I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for every vulnerable second of it because I see the recognition when he realizes what I already know. He didn't want to feel anything, and instead, he felt everything. We've just ruined ourselves with our hate for each other. He palms the sides of my head as he stares down at me with something akin to astonishment. It's only a flicker of revelation, but it's there. His eyes drop as he at me and wordlessly grabs the towel nearby in an attempt to cover me. I bat it away, disgusted by his cowardice. If I have to bear witness to this, so does he. There will be no mercy on either of our parts. You have to live with it too. Which is just so much, but yeah. They keep kind of being enemies and hating each other for a while after this, but you can tell that it's lost its punch. Things have changed. Our man has kind of lost his edge, and the actual cosmic joke of all of this, tell me why I actually kind of like this new man, this dark romance man. What is happening to me? He has so many red flags. He's even older than the other two losers were, and I hated them. I did not like either of those men. But this guy, I don't know, man. When he's not breaking into her house or being 13 years older than her or parading around all of his red flags with absolutely no remorse, he's kind of tender with it. He's got an actually kind of believable, gentle core to him. I don't know, man. It's weird. I don't know if it's just because it's the middle of the night and it's been a tough week, because this is not normally the kind of love interest I enjoy. And like, let's be clear, this book is not literature. They're just like speaking French all of the time for no reason in italics, and then immediately afterwards, it's just directly translated. This time, I hide behind his native tongue. Es-tu jaloux? Are you jealous? No, he says in my mind with the most fake French accents imaginable. Why are you saying no in French? It's the same fucking word. Bitch, I don't need a translation. I honestly still don't like Cecilia. Like, I have some more respect for her, barely, based on a couple of the scenes that she's been in with her dad, who, by the way, in the first book is just like a cartoon supervillain, but in this book contains some more interesting depth, dare I say. I know. I'm just gonna read you this entire scene from when she signs off on getting her fortune from her father. She like meets him inside of one of his skyscrapers. Normally, I wouldn't read this much at once, but I honestly thought that this scene was kind of riveting. Nice doing business with you, sir. I dismiss him and turn to gather my purse. Roman opens the door briefly, and then closes it before taking strides over to me. He stops a foot away, commanding my attention. He assesses me with a cool expression that I'm sure intimidates the hell out of any opposition, but I refuse to back down. But it's in his eyes, my eyes. I see a hint of regret. I swallow the lump in my throat as a burn threatens behind my eyes. Your mother did an outstanding job of raising you. You're well-mannered for the most part. You have respect for authority. You're a highly intelligent and beautiful young woman. You will go far. I have no doubt you have a bright future ahead of you. Eyes glistening, I do my best to control the shake in my voice. No thanks to you. She made her choices, and I made mine. Choices. You mean abandoning your daughter? If that was a choice, you sure made it seem like an easy one. Silence. The most infuriating silence I've ever endured. She deserved your mercy. She suffered horribly. His eyes gloss over briefly before he straightens his posture. Say whatever it is you want to say. I'll allow it, Cecilia, if it will make you feel better. Maybe it's you who wants to feel better, but I refuse to let you go off easy any longer. Good. I hope you hold the men in your life to a higher standard. Any man would be better than the coward you are. This time, his flinch is visible, and I'm pissed I find no satisfaction in it. Anything else? You should know I only did this for her, to care for her long term because she's the deserving parent. I see. He squeezes his fists briefly at his sides, and I go all in. Last year, when you came home that day, I had no right to impose. Demand the right, I rasp. Fight for me. For once in my goddamn life, fight for me. Fight for your place with me. Cecilia, I made choices, hard choices, and I've only had your best interests in mind when I made them. What does that even mean? It's not supposed to be a choice. Daddies are supposed to love their little girls. They're supposed to be their world, their life, and I seem to be worth more on paper to you than I am standing right in front of you. Help me understand. This money wasn't meant to be an insult. Why? Just tell me what I did. Was it her? Do you hate her so much you refuse to get involved with me because I remind you of her? Tell me why you can't be the father I deserve. Tell me why you can't love me. Tell me why she so clearly still loves you. He repeatedly swallows as I come unhinged. This is it, Roman. This is it. I saw something that day you came to me. I'm giving you that moment back, right here, right now. This is it. Do you hear me? Fight for me. I cough in a sob. I want a father, not a fortune. He stands completely motionless, his eyes cast down as all my foolish hopes leave me. Nothing. Not a word, not a single thing I asked for, just a portion of his fortune and his damning silence. Inside, I hollow out as I declare war on my emotions while desperately trying to scrape together what's left of my dignity. Okay, I swallow, wiping my eyes. Okay, but you should know you ruined her. His eyes glaze over again, and I can feel the shift in him despite his cool demeanor. You broke her heart, and you should know you were the first man to break mine too. But at least with her, it was a clean break. I shake my head. But you've been breaking mine for 20 long years. I sometimes think it was a curse to inherit her heart, but I'm thinking now it's much better I didn't get yours. I want nothing but... I slap my hand on the table. The best for me? Well, I guess I appreciate that. I shake my head, disgusted. Business concluded, Roman. I thrust my hand in his direction. Shake my hand. What? He stares at my outstretched hands and visibly pales. This was a business deal, was it not? I'm not seasoned yet, but I'm pretty sure that's the way you conclude a business deal. A handshake to seal the deal. I accept your terms. I accept your payoff, Mr. Horner. Consider it money well spent. This wasn't meant... Yes, it was. Shake my hand. Shoulders sagging, he places his hand in mine, and it's all I can do to keep my knees from buckling. My motives with this act, purely selfish, because it's the first and last time I'll ever hold my father's hands. Now look me in the eyes, I rasp, and say goodbye. I don't know, man. That's kind of fire. And the plot is just so ridiculous. Like, it really takes a lot to make me find an Eat the Rich plotline insufferable. Like, normally that's a grand old time for me, but just something about those first two men, man, they were just all of the worst fight the power white dudes that I ever met in my entire life, just wrapped up into one. And I understand conceptually that this man, whose name, by the way, is Tobias, I cannot believe that I'm defending a Tobias right now. What is happening to me? But I understand that in theory, these other two, their insufferability in part comes from Tobias, but it's just for reasons. Sean and Dominic have not been around so far this book, and it's been great. I feel like we have cut out the cancer. It's gone. I feel free. And that's why I'm updating right now, because A, it's 4 a.m. and I'm kind of in a manic state, but also B, I am scared. I am cautiously starting to, dare I say, like a really smutty new adult romance book, and I'm not even halfway. Like, it's not safe yet. There's still so much room for things to go wrong. But yeah, I'm kind of having a good time. Again, against my better judgment, I like this man. And I just had to come clean to you. I can't just read this entire book and then do one quip and move on. It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be a true representation of this experience. Oh man. Okay, that's all I have to share. I need to go to bed. This is so dramatic. I genuinely have no idea what's going on right now. I slept for 6 hours. I didn't even like him. He was one of the shitties. Or was he? If you held a gun to my head and told me to explain to you the plot of what is going on in this book, I honestly don't think I could. Fortunately for you, we're doing this anyways, at least based again on what we know at this point, because all of what I'm about to say is a mystery currently, but at least like half of it will be given more explanation later in the book. The other half is still a mystery, even now, even to me. But anyways, so important context, it is pretty obvious from Tobias's first 40% of this book that he does not want to be the fourth with Cecilia and the other two guys. Like, you think for a second when the book begins that you're just meeting a future member of the Kuehl, but he's not game for that. He's kind of possessive. So if you're anything like me, at this point I expected the book to become like a strange love triangle, like Tobias versus the throuple on different sides, and she would have to eventually pick because you know that Sean and Dominic are coming back. Like, those clowns are definitely not gone for good. And while I was correct about some of that, I can't say that I expected it going down the way that it did. Here's what happens. So Tobias comforts Cecilia in the wake of that harrowing conversation with her father, and it's actually kind of tender. Like, if I want to defend myself in front of my YouTube comments and God for liking this man, I have to say that the number one reason is that they just have really similar traumas and neuroses. Both of them were kind of forced into these parentified dynamics when they were really, really young. Tobias with his younger brother and Cecilia with her kind of unhinged mom. Both of them really just love self-sacrificing until there is nothing left to give. Both of them are extremely loyal. They work really, really hard for the people that they love, and their reticence to trust each other is is directly related to that trust being so significant. And the more time that they spend together, the more that they start to realize all of this. And it's tender, okay? Sue me. So Tobias comforts her. It's also super clear by now that he's like very much down bad. He gives her the rest of the gang origin story, which is actually that it was started by his late dead parents. Remember them? They were the original Raven Eaters of the Rich, hence why their deaths were extremely suspicious. Because what if Cecilia's dad overheard that there were some proles that were threatening to overthrow him, and so he took matters into his own hands, you know? The Raven gang was basically willed to Tobias after their deaths. It was pretty small at the time, but he really blew it up and made it into what it is now, which they have chapters all over, both in the US and internationally. They are super rich. They're allegedly very influential, although at this point it's unclear what exactly they have ever done. And during this story, he takes her to the gang meeting place, which happens to be that field that Tobias was kind of just vibing in that was near her dad's house when she ran into him in the woods. And the reason that it's there is just because of the aesthetic of planning to overthrow your enemy while directly under their nose. It's very appealing to him. But before any of that ever happened, it was also just his favorite place to hang out and think. And of course now it has all of this baggage. I can still remember Papa putting a voice to his big dreams, his plans for us, the way he advocated for this place, willing us all to imagine along with him in this new world, this new life he so believed in, that turned him and robbed him of his every dream, of his life. So when I lost them, I pushed the world away. I trusted no one. I was so angry that I shut myself off completely. And the more I learned about the world he believed in, the people he blindly trusted, put his faith in, the angrier I got. My purpose began to change as the years passed. I made no room for anything else. And since then, I've been doing exactly what I set out to do. Every plan I made here, I put into motion. Every decision I made here, I made happen. He turns to me. Yet, somewhere along the way, I forgot to look around, look up, to focus anywhere but on my task. I got so determined to see my own plans through, I tainted this place. I shared it for the sole reason of carrying out my purpose. After a few years, it was no longer my sanctuary because my ambitions had turned it into a war zone. That's why I like your view. You're seeing it right now, the way I saw it for the first time. And then later in the same conversation, you see, my plans, my decisions have backed me into a corner. But in this place, he lifts simmering eyes to mine and cups my face as if he's holding the world in his hands. My instinct is to look away, to recognize the lie, to pinpoint the deceit. But I don't. I can't, because I feel every word he's saying to my core. Here, there are no outsiders, no threats, no pasts, no one else. There's nothing but us. Choked by his honesty, by his openness, he runs his thumb along my bottom lip, his eyes dipping briefly before he brings them back to mine. And in them, I see him so clearly for the first time. And because of you, I see this place again for what it truly is. It hasn't lost any of its magic. I just forgot how to look for it. Which, why is he kind of cooking? And a little while later, he is on the verge of confessing his love to her. Ask me anything, he whispers, pressing his thumb into the corner of my mouth before tracing my lip as his cinnamon-coated hair hangs between us. Ask me, and I'll tell you. We're not business anymore, I whisper, partly a declaration, part question. We're chest to chest as he slowly shakes his head. No, we're not. I can't bring myself to ask him, and so I don't. Instead, he leans in and presses his lips to mine before he speaks. You warned me not to fall in love with you. You said you wouldn't make room for me. You told me you wouldn't. I remind him, my soul soaring with his confession. He leans in close, his nose brushing mine. Then I guess that makes us both liars. Well, brother, would you take a fucking look at this? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Tobias tenses before going ramrod straight, his expression sobering as he pulls himself to kneel a second before I jackknife, my pulse skyrocketing as I turn from where I sit on the ground and lift my gaze to meet the livid eyes of his brother. And yeah, they come back and everything starts to get kind of twisted again. It turns out that Tobias sent Dominic and Sean away to France to study the blade under another chapter of the gang, and the idea with that is it reaffirms their loyalty, so that way when they come back, they're not going to betray the interests of the Ravens for a girl, much like what Tobias is currently doing. And he refused when they left to let them give Cecilia any information. He wanted a completely clean break. Honestly, for me, this is treated in the book like a massive twist, but it really did not come as much of a surprise. I feel like Tobias kind of implied that something like this happens from that very first conversation that he had with Cecilia when he was like, yeah, I'm the reason that you're not a part of this anymore. I'm the reason that the boys are now out of play. Plus, combined with just them disappearing randomly, despite how clearly down bad they were at the end of the first book, it was evident to me that they were getting orders from higher up. But, you know, Cecilia is many things inside of this book, but she is not the owner of very many brain cells. So she is shocked that Tobias would betray her in this way, but much more reasonably, Sean and Dominic, and especially Dominic, are extremely mad that they went to get jacked and fuck up rich people for a year in France, only to come back to Dominic's older brother, who made the decision to exile them, hitting on the same girl that they were exiled for hitting on. Like, that is a triple betrayal critical hit. Like, not only is that your little brother's ex-girlfriend, not only did you break them up yourself, the whole situation is also completely contrary to your own philosophy about how you run your gang. So yeah, they're pretty mad. Tobias closes his eyes as Sean speaks up. I guess it's a good thing we caught that early plane, isn't it, Dom? Tobias's expression cools considerably. Don't play innocent, Sean. Innocent? No, I'm not fucking claiming that. He snaps his fingers sarcastically before pointing at Tobias, his voice filled with condescension. What was your speech before you sent us off? We needed to get our heads right. So you sentenced us away for 10 fucking months to be Boy Scouts and pay for our crimes. And what did you do? What do you mean you caught an early plane? I ask Sean, who looks at me in a way I never imagined possible. He ignores my question and takes a step toward me. I asked you to trust me. I told you I would make this right. Trust you? You gave me nothing, which is exactly what you left me with. Both of you, I say, darting my eyes between them. So, you my brother? Dominic speaks up, his voice lethal. Pretty cold, baby. Watch it, Tobias warns, as Dominic's eyes drift over to him. I suppose I should congratulate you for keeping it in the family. And yeah, Sean is basically like, babe, I told you I would make it up to you one day. You were supposed to just never do anything ever again, because I kind of implied to you once that I would be back for you eventually, which is really exactly what you would expect from a guy like Sean, whose perception of other people and the world only extends in like 3 feet in each direction from his thick fucking skull. But yeah, everybody's mad, everybody feels played, people start shit-talking in French. You're angry, I understand, but that will never mean we are not brothers. It means nothing to you. You proved that. Dominic eyes me, and I can feel the onslaught of his words before he speaks them. When you f her, brother, just know it's me you're tasting. You can keep her. If you want forever. She speaks French, Tobias snaps. Dominic smiles at me, his eyes void of the soul I know and love. I know she does. Of course you would go there, Dom. Of course you would. That's your go-to, isn't it? Say it in English, you fucking coward. Call me a whore in a way I fully understand. That's me, isn't it? Nothing but a whore. Not the woman who loved you unconditionally despite the way you treated me in the beginning and deceived me before you left me in the street crying for you. I was faithful to you until I had no choice but to let go and move on. But that doesn't matter, does it? Because all that matters is that I'm not yours to f anymore. Tobias is like, I had plans to tell you, but they came back a week early, which, I mean, who's to say, but it does seem kind of real. But also, again, I kind of think he already did tell her. She just is acting surprised Pikachu at the consequences of her own actions because she decided to date her ex-boyfriend's older brother and like only now realized that Dominic still exists as a person on this planet. And in this scene, the two of them apparently can tell that Cecilia likes Tobias more than she likes them. They can see the writing on the wall that they are doomed as romantic rivals. So eventually they just leave to go be mad elsewhere. And Cecilia, still angry, she kicks Tobias out because, again, she's a multimillionaire at this point. She got her inheritance. So she's just like, you know what? If everybody is just going to lie to me for fun constantly, I'm just going to be done here. I'm going home. And she starts to pack up all of her stuff from the mansion so that way she can leave. But then she wakes up the next day, and God, I forgot about this part. She wakes up the next day sore and achy and confused, and she's in bed, but she remembers falling asleep when she was doing laundry. So how did she get there? And she realizes when she sits up that something has happened. Jerking my t-shirt over my head, I toss it to the floor and hobble toward my vanity, determined not to faceplant. It's there I discover there are 2 pads taped along my shoulder blades. What in the fuck? I don't have to lift them to know what's there, but I have to see it for myself. I manage to reach the edge of one of them with my thumb and slowly peel it off. Bold black ink clear in the reflection. Raven's wings. Oh my God, I gasp as I manage to lift the other side. Reeling, I study the unmistakable mark while shaking my head in denial. Last night, I wasn't emotionally drained. I was fucking drugged and branded. Branded, marked by one of the sadistic liars who claimed to love me. My first thought is Dominic, but Sean was just as angry, just as hurt, maybe even more so. Is this my punishment? Or is this a display of how much power they have over me? Tobias would never take the choice away from me. He's too level-headed, less emotional. He wouldn't do this to me, especially after the way he deceived me. Or would he? I may be the villain you fell for, but that doesn't make me any less the villain. I wouldn't put it past any of them at this point, but this only makes sense for the one who thinks he has a point to prove. Who in the hell actually believes they own me? Truly owns me enough to mark me as his possession? Not only is it sick, but it's also against the law. So yeah, that's insane. She's mad, obviously, and she has no idea which of the 3 men in her life did it, which is really just the icing on the cake. And she's still planning on doing her original plan of leaving, but before she does, because of what has just happened, because she's really mad, she plans and executes on a truly masterful operation. Step 1, she drives to the garage where she knows that Sean and Dominic will be because that is where they always hang out, and she's right, they're there, they're having another darty. Step 2, she slashes the tires of all of the people who who are currently there at this gathering, so that way nobody will be able to follow her. Step 3, she whips out a few 5-gallon containers of gasoline and just pours them all out in front of her. And then step 4, she yells really loud to make Sean and Dominic come outside, which in turn brings out everybody else who was at this party. And she gives her, "You guys are the fucking worst, and also you're fucking criminals" monologue. She asks which of them gave her the tattoo, but nobody answers, of course. No reaction, just pure stonewall. And then 2 things happen basically in sync. First, everybody's phones go off all at the same time. Even though, lest you have forgotten, Sean and Dominic's entire thing in book 1 was that nobody could ever have a phone around them because the government was always right on the other side. But now everybody gets to have phones again. I guess the rules have changed, and they all go off at once and at the same time. "You're both fucking cowards. I was never yours and I never will be. Stay the fuck away from me." "Dom!" Tyler shouts, running to his side with the phone before putting it to his ear. A second later, Dom grips it and drops all pretense, walking toward me in a blur just as I light the bottle and toss it down in the puddle of gasoline. Dom lunges, but the flash of flames separate us, giving me just enough time to dash to my Jeep. Dominic reaches the hood, slamming his fists on it just as I peel out. My heart hammers wildly against my chest as I race down the roads, screaming as I beat my hands against the wheel, and under the cover of night, I disappear. And yeah, she just sets the parking lot on fire and then drives away. But we're not done. We're so not done. Cecilia drives all around the area for hours, just making little circles around the town, just in case somebody followed her, I guess, even though she slashed everybody's tires. But the next morning, when she thinks it's safe, she heads back to her dad's house so that way she can get her things and actually leave. For context, by the way, if you're wondering why all of this stuff can just consistently happen at her dad's mansion with little to no oversight, it's because he just stopped living there in book 1 because it was awkward for them and he's kind of an avoider. And even though he does have security cameras, it was like the first thing that Dominic did when they all started smashing was just put all of the cameras on a loop. So they don't show him shit. Nobody else is living there. It's just Cecilia, which is why all of this debauchery can continue to occur. But yeah, she goes into the house to get her stuff so that way she can leave for good. And as she is packing, Dominic walks into the room. Dominic is holding a gun. The gun has a silencer. Cecilia, seeing this, is like, holy shit, like, are you just here to kill me? Am I about to meet God? Which feels like a fair assumption to make given the circumstances here. And Dom immediately backpedals. He's like, "No, dude, I would never hurt you, babe. What a silly thing to assume." Instead of thinking to explain anything about what's going on, he just tosses his gun towards the stairs to reduce his threat level. The 2 of them go on to have this tearful conversation where, again, he explains absolutely nothing about the active situation that I would say would probably be my first priority. More on that soon, but first, their heart to heart. "I just don't know what to believe anymore." "We fucked up so bad with you. Believe that. Tell me you know deep down we aren't those guys." I shake my head, unable to form words. "See, that's not us. Last night, I was drugged and tattooed. Are you sure you're not those guys?" "Jesus." He cups the back of his neck. "You're right. I can't blame you for thinking the worst, can I?" Apparently, also, Dominic wanted to tell her when he was studying the blade in France that they would be back for her, but Sean said no, he vetoed. So that's why she never heard from them. Just classic Sean behavior to assume that that would be completely fine. And again, Dominic can tell at this point that she likes Tobias more than him, so he also just functionally gives her his blessing. "I can't do this right now. I can't. Just make him happy." But then also he's like, "Yeah, remember back in book 1 when I told you that I didn't believe in love? Yeah, turns out I did actually kind of love you after all," which shock. And the 2 of them are about to leave. They're about to bring Cecilia back to Atlanta when they're interrupted by this random guy named Mateo. Who is Mateo? Great question. You don't really know. He's kind of just a guy from the Miami chapter of the Raven Gang. They call themselves the Spanish Lullaby. That's the only fact that we know about them. And when the throuple went to that weird gang party back in book 1 where Cecilia was not allowed to talk to anybody, but she was allowed to see all of their faces a while ago, Dominic went drag racing inside of his really fast car along with some of the guys in the Miami chapter. And when they got back, Dominic saw that they had fucked up his car a little bit. So as penance, Dominic just beats them up. But we're told at the time in book 1 that that's just how things go sometimes. That's just how the Ravens work. Nothing to worry about. It's completely fine. But I guess not, because for reasons completely unclear to us, they have defected, apparently. Somebody rich and powerful has taken out a hit on Cecilia and her father, and Mateo is here to execute. As Mateo reveals himself, Tobias just walks out from the guest room directly across the hall, and you might assume that he's evil and in on it, but actually he's just been chilling there after sweeping the house for enemies, so that way his brother can have his moments, even with all of the danger going on, just really going about stealing his girl like a true gentleman. But apparently Tobias was not thorough enough during his safety check, because not only is Mateo hanging out on the staircase, there's also another guy, Andre, who just pops out of the closet inside of Cecilia's room, and I guess was just in there with her and Dominic the entire time. I'm just picturing him listening to this conversation, like actively wanting to die, but he reveals himself. Worth noting that these men came armed seemingly literally just with these really long, spooky hunting knives. Like, they don't seem to have guns. So I don't really know what the plan was, but unfortunately, since Cecilia was scared that Dominic had come to do a little bit of murdering earlier, and because he didn't even attempt to explain that there was an active hit on her head and she was in immeasurable danger, Dominic had left his gun out by the stairs, and it's now in the hands of the enemy. So even though these fuckers didn't even bring guns, somehow they have leveled the playing field. We get a little bit of lore about the hit. What the fuck are you doing, Andre? Things are getting a little too light down south. So you take a fucking contract that has to do with my personal interests? Not a good decision. Gotta get paid, he says, as if this is an everyday occurrence. And I'm guessing for him, it is. Tobias is like, yeah, whatever it is, I'll pay you double what you were given to do this hit. And Mateo says sure, but he clearly doesn't intend on following through. Even though at this point I'm being so fucking serious, their only known personality traits are being Spanish, being greedy, and having money as their sole motivator. But for some reason, the money offer is not enough for them. Because also worth noting here that yes, Dominic and Cecilia are kind of in danger because they're flanked on either side by these guys with long knives and one gun, but Tobias has plenty of room. Like, he can easily shoot and kill both of these guys before they can get to him. So there's no obvious way out for the Spanish lullaby. Like, Tobias is not gonna just let them kill Cecilia and Dominic completely for free if they go for it, which theoretically means that they are willing to sacrifice their lives for this instead of just negotiating for more money, which again, money being their only motivator seemingly. And if you foolishly think that this will make more sense later, we're never gonna learn anything substantive about these men other than what we've already learned. We will get marginally more information on who put out the hit, but nothing that explains who these men are or why they're just willing to lay down their lives for this cause. But anyways, Dominic chooses now to give his emotional monologue of impending doom. Cecilia, Dominic says in the intimate tone he used with me in the days we spent together alone. Dominic, Tobias implores, a jagged fear in his voice. I'm talking to Cecilia, Dominic counters. Yes? My eyes spill as Tobias darts his apprehensive gaze between his brother and me. After this, you want to watch a movie? Dominic asks. You can make that cheddar popcorn I love. We can crowd under that blanket that smells like... What's that smell? I choke on a fresh wave of fear. Lavender, I say as more tears stream down my cheeks. Yeah, and I'll let you watch a chick movie because all I really want to do is watch you watch it. Your face gets all dopey when you get love drunk. We love rainy days, don't we, baby? Dominic's voice drifts up as he takes a step toward Mateo, which is legitimately pretty sad. It's like how in an anime, when somebody dies, you get their backstory told to you, but again, in a montage with a bunch of sad music. That's what this kind of felt like. And it would be more sad if I liked him or if this entire scene wasn't, again, just ridiculous in concept. But I can see why people find what is about to happen very sad. Like, I mean, you can imagine where this is going. After his little emotional moment with Cecilia, Dominic unironically hits Mateo with the, we don't fucking negotiate with terrorists. And just with no weapon and a dream, charges downstairs at the guy with the gun. The physics of the scene that follows do not make very much sense. Like, the decisions that our fighters make are not what I would call the best, but what you need to know is Tobias instantly takes out Andre, point blank, shot to the head, and meanwhile, Dominic is wrestling with Mateo. He like tips him over like a cow, but then after that, he remembers that Mateo had his gun, so he turns around and like pushes Tobias out of the way of a bunch of gunshots, which Dominic also dodges, rather than just continuing to wrestle Mateo for the gun in melee, but whatever. Then he spins around and runs to knock Cecilia out of the way of a bunch of gunshots, but very dramatically like an action movie. As he's pushing her out of the way, he himself is shot. Not once, not twice, not even 3 times, but 4, just to make it really clear that he's not getting out of this one. And Tobias, I guess, just forgot that he had a weapon with only 1 remaining target during this entire scene, but then he remembers and he shoots Mateo once with perfect accuracy in the head, but it is too late at this point for our boy. Dominic covers my hands with his and squeezes them faintly before his eyes lift to his brother, his pain-filled words coming out chopped. We both know I was never going to make it to 30, brother. Take care of her. Tobias presses his forehead to his brother's, and I hear Dominic's faint whisper to him. Always brothers. Mother greets you, Tobias replies. Father keep you. I love you, brother. Just the last thing I expected to come out of this book. Like, again, this love triangle-ish situation only exists for like 30 pages in this book before the author just decides to kill off a half of one of the spokes. And even though Dominic begins kind of the worst, once he was recharacterized entirely and became like 3% less of an edgelord, I did kind of like him, which really is a Herculean feat given how this book starts off. Sleep, Prince, I say softly, biting my lips as my hot tears pelt his face. I lace my fingers with Dominic's and close my eyes. I'll find you again. I'll find you in my dreams. We'll have so many rainy days. Like, maybe I'm just a wimp, but I did unexpectedly find this kind of sad. I didn't cry, but I feel like in 3 out of every 100 parallel universes, if I'm in a pretty suggestible emotional state, this could kind of fuck me up. And again, I didn't even like him, but whatever. Anyways, Sean and the rest of the good ravens arrive, and so do a bunch of other bad ravens, and Tobias is just like, kill them all and get her out of here. And Sean scoops her up and drops her out of the 2nd floor balcony to Tyler, who is waiting with the getaway car. Tobias tells her to leave and never come back for her own safety, and she's whisked away from Dominic's cooling corpse to the large open road of her future. And that's a wrap. That's that, because at this point we finally get our 6-year time skip to the prologue of book 1. We're finally there. It finally makes like 10% more sense. And you learn very quickly that much has occurred during this time skip. Let me list some things for you. Number 1, her dad is just dead. Nobody killed him. Nobody took over his business at the end of all of that shit from book 1. Nobody did anything at all, and now he's just dead from colon cancer. It happened when Cecilia was 22, and she never talked to him again after that scene that I read for you. Side note, I was so mad about this one. Like, that's the entire plot of this book, but whatever, he's cooked. Time skip thing number 2, Sean is now married with 2 kids. So a complete non-factor. Like, if you didn't know who the endgame man in this book was, now you do. I can see how this would make people kind of mad, but I, for one, was extremely happy to have as little Sean content, if you will, as possible. Thing number 3, Cecilia went to college, and she ended up dating and getting engaged to her best friend, who is this British man named Colin. The 2 of them also, post-grad, run this nonprofit together that fights corporations when they break the law. So basically, it's an above-board version of what the Ravens are doing, because she was influenced by them and by her time there. She's apparently incredibly good at her job. Like, her nonprofit has already taken down a bunch of big corporations, which, keep in mind, Cecilia is only 26, and she takes a couple of community college classes when she's in Triple Falls, but she really starts college in earnest after everything that happened when she was 20. So she finishes her bachelor's, goes to law school, starts her own nonprofit, achieves incredible things with that nonprofit, and she has time to be engaged and plan a wedding, just booked and busy. So that is where we're at. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet about Cecilia is she always remembers her dreams, right? They're extremely vivid, and normally that doesn't really matter, but recently she has been having these extremely realistic dreams about the men that she loved and lost in Triple Falls. And she has an especially intense one like a couple of months before her wedding, and it finally makes her realize that she will never get over them, that she will never love Colin like she loves these men. So she wakes up one day and she dumps him, and she cedes her part of ownership of her nonprofit over to him as well. And she calls up her old estate lawyer and she's like, yeah, it's time. I'll sell my dad's old business. I'll sell his old mansion. And it seems kind of from the outside like she's doing that because she wants to move on, but really she just wants to go back and reconnect with her men. And so she takes the best lawyer that her nonprofit has with her. It's this guy that she dated in college whose name is Ryan. We quickly learn that Ryan is also in love with her because every relevant man inside of this book is just in love with her, other than Tyler, who is smashing Dominic's aunt. And Ryan is like, yeah, I'll help you sell this company, but after that, I have to quit. I have to move on from you one day. And she's like, cool, great. And they drive together to Triple Falls. And I mean, honestly, the back half of this book is a lot less interesting than the first half. So I'm gonna keep this relatively short. This video is already going to be like so much longer than I anticipated it being when I started these books. Long story short, yeah, so Sean has moved on. He has kids now, good for him. But Tobias never really moved on. He's dating this random girl that we also met at that party back in the first book and then never saw again until now. But it's not really that serious. And it also turns out that he is, I guess, a fucking multi-billionaire. That's just dropped on us. Where is he getting his money from? Nobody knows. In theory, how we're told that they fund their gang is through skimming money off of the top of rule-breaking corporations that won't turn them in for fear of getting investigated themselves. But how exactly that amounts to billions of dollars, especially after the death of the one guy who hacks Dominic, is just, it's beyond me. But whatever, turns out that her company has one offer, and that offer happens to be from Tobias. And when Cecilia finds this out, she basically forces him as a condition of the contract to sell the business to meet with her every day, nominally to talk about his plan to reorganize the company to being employee-owned and based, but really just to talk about their relationship. And for like 15% of the book, this just becomes a workplace romance, which honestly was a lot. And Tobias is really trying to avoid her, but she will not let him. She can just tell that he still cares about her and that he's just blowing smoke when he's saying that none of this actually mattered to him. And I mean, she's right. Like, this guy is not particularly slick. Also, I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this, but it needs to be shared. We also learned during this portion of the book that Tobias saw Cecilia for the first time when she was only 11 years old. Not in a weird way. I mean, it's still weird. Like, there's no getting around it when you have an age gap that's that large. But when he saw her with her dad when he was doing reconnaissance, he made the decision to not involve her in gang affairs because she was just a kid. She reminded him of his brother. She's not the sins of her father. But then obviously when they meet again almost a decade later, she's all grown up, which, you know. Every time this man references the fact that he's 10 years older than her, I get one step closer to the edge. I don't need this lore. I'm trying to ignore it. Please stop. My family is dying. Colin, her ex-fiance, at one point makes an appearance to try to get her back, of course. Also worth noting with that to get him off of her back, Cecilia commits the galactic level relationship war crime that is telling him, admitting out loud with words, radical honesty, that every time they smashed, not only was she pretending that he was Tobias, but she would also finish it up herself afterwards when he was in the shower, still thinking of him. Which he didn't need to know that. Like, this woman genuinely has no filter. That is how you turn a man into like a red pill incel, and she just pressed the big red button, like, God. Also, Colin has a conversation with Tobias.
How does it feel to know that when you were your future wife, she was thinking of me? Colin's eyes bulge in water as he looks at me over Tobias's shoulder, utter devastation etching his face. Enraged, I pound on Tobias's back. Damn you, let him go. I've got that thug she craves, he sneers. Stop, she's already dead, stop.
But anyways, here's the actual plot. Here's what we learn about what happened several years ago during this entire section. So Cecilia's dad, Roman, apparently had this vast array of enemies, and one of those enemies was his first business partner, who he's described, I think, as like Zuckerberging out of his company, one of those big Silicon Valley betrayals. And this guy, whose name is Jerry Siegel, not only was he taken down in the modern day by Cecilia's nonprofit because he became unethical in other ways in his other businesses, but we also learned that he's the one who took out the hit on Cecilia and her father that led to Dominic's death. Why he's taking out this hit now, like 20 years after he was betrayed, why he's taking out the hit specifically with the fallen sect of the Raven Gang, nobody knows. Life is full of crazy coincidences, but that's where it came from. It was from one of her dad's old enemies. But it turns out that Roman somehow knew that this hit was happening. How he found out, we don't know. But Roman, her dad, is the one who tips off Tobias, his enemy, his known enemy, because he knows that Tobias will want to keep Cecilia safe. Because apparently Tobias happened to be there with her dad because he had chosen the most miraculous time imaginable to meet up with him and tell him that he is in love with her daughter, and that the revenge that he had been plotting against him for like 20 years was on pause because of that. Or so you think, because the double truth, the actual reason why revenge is paused, you don't learn until like 80 pages of angstily arguing about whether or not to get back together later. When she is going through the mansion that she's about to sell, Cecilia ends up finding a letter on her dad's dresser that is addressed to her. Cecilia, I'm everything your eyes accused me of being. You were better off. Forgive me, Roman. Which is pretty tough to start out with, but under that is another letter that is addressed to her dad from her mom, written about the year when Cecilia went to Triple Falls. And in that letter, it's revealed to us that Roman didn't actually have Dominic's parents killed, because the truth is that Cecilia's parents were secretly dating at the time. Her mom was also like 18 when he was 30, so just keeping it classic in that family. But yeah, they were dating and nobody could know, I guess, because Roman just, again, has so many enemies, so many people who want to see him fall. That's why so many rich corporate women just get kidnapped and killed constantly. That's why it's so hard for CEOs to find wives. Nobody wants to do it. It's hard work. But anyways, yeah, to protect her, nobody could know that they were together. And she was just a worker in his plant at the time, because of course she was, but she found out that she was pregnant with Cecilia, and they were trying to figure out what to do about that when she was at work, she just accidentally, oopsies, started a fire. And the protocol when you start a fire in this company is to just close the door where the fire is taking place and lock it, so that way it can't get out, because it's well-established fact that fires can escape unlocked doors. And so that's what she did, just not realizing, I guess, that Dominic's parents were also in the room and now could no longer escape. And Roman covered it up, not only because he is an evil corporate businessman, but also because he wanted to protect Cecilia and her mom from whatever consequences they would have had to face, even though it was pretty clearly an accident. And all of them having a messy breakup and him being an absent father and paying almost nothing in child support because he doesn't even care. It's all revealed to have been like a grand bit, just in case any of his enemies are watching, because if he seems not to care about his daughter, then they won't hurt his daughter to hurt him. Who are these people? This man makes fucking calculators. That's his factory. That's what he does. Why are there people leaving loaded guns inside of his infant's crib as a threat to him? Like, who is this guy? But yeah, that's why he was an absent father. That lore is now known. Of course, he's also dead now, so there's very little that Cecilia can do with this information other than find peace within herself. Also, apparently her mom wanted to get back together with him publicly, like up until the end. Cecilia thought that he died alone, but apparently her mom was at his bedside ever every single day. So that's the situation. And Cecilia calls Tobias to tell him about this development, and turns out he already knows. Learning all of this lore during the conversation that he had with her father was the reason why he stopped wanting revenge. And how harrowing that conversation was is a big reason why he too is icing out Cecilia. And to be clear, I mean, this guy runs a gang. Like, it's much more reasonable that he has a slew of mysterious evil enemies that could potentially hurt her. But yeah, in his head, he's like, I can't endanger her because I can't lose her too. Like, I lost my brother. And when he tells her all of this, Cecilia's pretty mad. She's like, I finally found my reason to hate you, Tobias. His eyes snapped to mine. Not because of our past, not because of the way you've pushed me away, but because of the way you're punishing us both, the same way Roman did. Love isn't an inconvenience. It isn't a mistake, and the danger makes it all worth it. I walked through fucking fire for you. I survived hell for you. You don't deserve me. You never deserved me, not at all. But I deserve you. I deserve you. But it's the king I deserve. It's the king I want. I clench my fists. I loved the bastard I met, the thief that stole me, and the king who claimed me. But I refuse to love the coward. I hate the coward. Which, like, got his ass, and she storms out, good for her. Cecilia scatters her dad's ashes in the backyard of his house and thinks about how he really did love her after all. He just didn't really know how to go about it, considering how complicated everything was, which is so ridiculous, but I have to say is also the closest that this book got to making me cry. I love a complicated family dynamic. I don't know what to say. She has one last conversation with Sean that was kind of wholesome about how they've both moved on but still care about each other, but I really would just like to erase that man from my memory, so we're gonna move on. And then she leaves. She's like, yeah, Tobias's love has made me a stronger person, but I'm not gonna just wait around for a coward, which is honestly based. I mean, it's not where the book is gonna end, but you probably could have seen that coming already. Yada, yada, yada. We get an 8-month time skip, blah, blah, blah. She buys a restaurant, but she also works there as a waitress, just, you know, to get outside, to get on her feet. She turns on the TV and sees the newly inaugurated president, and Tyler is standing next to him, which implies, I guess, that like the Ravens have won. They're enacting change on the highest level. I don't know. It was bleh. And then predictably, Tobias shows up and he's like, I actually am in love with you, and I totally was a coward because of my complicated personal history and extensive issues around grieving my dead brother, but now I know it's worth it anyways, and I love you, and please take me back. Also, like, second to last page, it's finally revealed that it was him that tattooed her, and it was like a promise, a mark to prove that he would like always be there for her, which I can't get behind. I'm sorry, I can't do it. But yeah, at this point, she finds it cute, and he says sorry, and she takes him back, and they both say I love you, and it's a happily ever after. And that's the end of this. Okay, here's my review. Honestly, I had a good time, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I've read quite a few TikTok dark romance books at this point, and I think that this was probably my favorite so far, which, like, to capture how surprised I am by that, I don't even really know how to do it. I'm probably going to give this book 3 stars, which sounds bad, but for me is actually like a completely acceptable rating. I can't say that it's worth the entire first book to get here. In fact, I actually can say that it's definitely not, but considering the fact that I was already here, considering that I had no choice in the matter but to carry on regardless, there was just something about it, man. It had so much drama. Cecilia in a lot of ways was very annoying, but she also had this reckless disregard for conventional wisdom that just meant that she continuously did the most out-of-pocket shit imaginable, and it was entertaining. It was a fun time. Dare I double down in a public forum, I actually kind of liked Tobias for her, other than all of the parts where he's an insane person, other than the parts where he's dating somebody that he saw for the first time doing recon on her rich father when she was 11. Other than that, other than the parts where he breaks into her house constantly, and the parts where he just sits in a corner and like growls at her menacingly over his laptop when he's doing work. You know, if you just do a little bit of belief suspension, if you just do a little bit of tasteful closing of the eyes to some of the cringe, sometimes to some of his negative qualities, he was kind of tender. He was kind of giving kindred spirit. Okay, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what you expect from me. And yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be getting more than 3 stars because the plot was still completely nonsensical. How is it possible that Cecilia's dad, whose company creates calculators, that's what they do, how does this man have so many ops? Like, even out of the major plotline of this book, he's apparently dealing with international enemies. Why? He makes TI-82s. What do you mean? Hi, so I've since discovered, and this is news to me, that Texas Instruments actually operates in 2 primary industries: calculators, and then guided missile weaponry. So I guess I take it back. I mean, who's to say what this man was really involved in? Maybe he does have international ops. Why is Tobias a multi-billionaire? Like, where is all of this seed money coming from to start his own morally gray startup? You can't convince me that it's all from hacking. Like, that doesn't actually make any sense. You know that, right? And how does nobody ever get caught? They're all criminals, babe. It's mutually assured destruction. Okay, sure. Why is Tyler hanging out with the president? You learn very early on plan inside of this book not to ask too many questions. And also with the writing, I mean, parts of it were still really repetitive in a theatrical way that was just a lot to get through. Like your eyes kind of start to glaze over as a survival mechanism. With all of that said, I kind of had no choice but to respect the audacity of this book to just continue doing extremely silly things just for a pure love of the game, for a love of drama. I don't know, man, like in a lot of ways, this book was not less cringe than the first book, but I really just got used to it. Like I also kind of think that to be cringe on occasion is to free yourself from the shackles of what binds you to this soulless world. So it kind of hit for me sometimes. There's just really no other way to explain it. I think that if you enjoy angsty and melodramatic Lifetime movie style stories, just as a treat for yourself, sometimes if you are willing to inure yourself to the first book where everybody is awful and nothing makes sense in order to get to the second book where everybody still starts off pretty awful and things will only ever make marginally more sense than they did. If you can dissociate past the less palatable parts of these men, you just have to not worry about it. Some of the facts about this situation have to be ignored in order to be enjoyed. But if you can do that, you, like me, might have, dare I say, a pretty good time. I'm gonna leave it at that. And yeah, I'm losing light right now, but I'm gonna finish this video. Here is where I acknowledge that I know that there is a third book in this series. It's called The Finish Line. It's somehow 100 pages longer than Exodus, which is 450 pages, so it's a real chonker. And I genuinely could not care less. Like maybe this is heretical to say to anybody who is a fan of this series, but based on some of the reviews, it kind of just looks like it's an extended epilogue. It's described to be healing, which I fear is just secret code for boring smut montage with brief moments of emotional processing that I could probably already write the script for right now inside of my head. And I feel like the ending for book 2 was fine. Like you get a fairly clear happily ever after. I'm happy with what we have. I liked that book a lot more than I expected to, and I fear that if I read the third book, it'll just make me bitter towards what at the end of the day I feel was kind of a guilty pleasure experience. It also has Tobias's POV, which I don't need to be inside of this man's head. It's only going to make me like him less. It is foretold. That is just how it will be if I read his thoughts. So I don't plan on reading the third book, and from what I have heard, I don't think it's actually essential to the story, so I feel like I can still put out this video and feel pretty good about it. So yeah, that's the video. Thank you for joining me on this fantastic adventure. This isn't normally how I go about videos like this, but this series was a demon that I had to get out, and I couldn't do that in the original vlog. I had to talk about it more in depth. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you. If you liked this video, please actually like it. Please tell me every thought that you have in the comments. Have you ever been personally victimized by conversations with a man like Sean? Let me know. But that's it. That's everything I have to say. Bye!